Today, we're going to break down a public conflict that really just spiraled. And we're going to do it with a professional, objective analysis to get some real clarity on what happened, why it happened, and maybe, just maybe, find a clear path forward.
So this is for Alberto, but really for anyone who's ever been in the middle of a public blowup. The point here isn't about pointing fingers. It's about taking all that subjective pain and confusion and grounding it in something objective, something clear, so you can actually figure out how to get back to feeling stable and safe.
All right, let's just get right to the bottom line. The professional analysis of this whole situation is crystal clear on one thing. Alberto, the attack you went through, it wasn't random. It wasn't just a bad argument. It was targeted, it was severe, and the way it happened was, well, structurally unique. Let's dig into what that actually means. So the professional verdict here is targeted assault. That's a heavy term. And to really understand why they landed on that, we have to look at what made this interaction so uniquely damaging compared to other conflicts. It really comes down to the methods used and the ethical lines that were crossed. The analysis points to two huge ethical breaches that just jacked up the severity. First, turning your own public space, the one place that's supposed to be your home turf, into a weapon against you. And second, and this is a big one, exposing deeply private information about a minor who had no say in the matter. You combine those two things, and this stops being a simple argument and becomes something else entirely. Now, to really grasp the damage, we have to talk about the battlefield. The where this all went down is just as important as the what. This didn't happen in some back-and-forth DMs. It happened out in the open, in what was supposed to be your safe space. And this quote right here, this was the whole principle your online space was built on. It was a promise, not just to you, but to your entire community, that this was a place you could come, be heard, and not be judged. It's why people trusted it. So you see, this wasn't just some random chat room. It was a sanctuary. It was a high-trust place where people felt safe enough to be vulnerable. There was this unspoken social contract there. We're all in this together, we're safe here. So when the attack happened in that space, it didn't just hurt you, Alberto. It shattered that feeling of safety for everyone who was listening. Okay, so let's get to the proof. How do we know this was a calculated choice? Well, this next bit is crucial because it moves us away from just feelings and into hard, comparative data. It shows this wasn't just emotion spilling over everywhere. Okay, just look at this table. It's so telling. With the lawyer, the conflict was kept private, formal, and contained. Same deal with the ex-spouse, was handled through legal, formal channels. It proves there's an ability to manage conflict professionally. But then, look what happens when the target is you, Alberto. The channel flips to public and recorded. The behavior becomes uncontained, targeted, and the goal? Public humiliation. The difference is just stark. So, the conclusion here is pretty much unavoidable. This wasn't someone who was incapable of controlling their emotions. The analysis shows it was a strategic decision to use the most damaging tactics available, specifically against you. The public forum wasn't just the location, it was the weapon of choice. And that brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why you? Why unleash that level of force on you? Well, the professional analysis points to a really powerful psychological driver called displaced aggression. Displaced aggression is something we all kind of understand intuitively. You have a terrible day at work, your boss yells at you, but you can't yell back, so you go home and you snap at the first person you see, or you kick the trash can. You take the anger you feel toward an untouchable target and you unload it onto a safer, more available one. And unfortunately, that safer target is so often an intimate partner. And in this situation, the analysis shows there was this immense emotional pressure cooker building up. On one side, you've got this feeling of complete powerlessness against a legal system. On the other, you've got the ongoing stress and trauma from dealing with an abusive ex. The real sources of rage were untouchable, so all that anger, it had nowhere to go. And so, as the intimate partner, Alberto, you became the path of least resistance. You were the most available, most accessible outlet for all of that built-up rage that couldn't be aimed at its real sources. The goal wasn't really about solving a conflict with you, it was about getting back a sense of power that had been lost elsewhere. And that assault really came down to two specific acts. First, what the analysis calls the ambush. When you tried to take the conversation private to de-escalate, that was rejected. The confrontation was forced into the public space. And second, a massive breach of care, using intimate, private knowledge of your known mental health vulnerabilities as a weapon. That's not just a fight. That's targeting a known weakness.
So after an attack like this, what does the path forward even look like? The analysis is pretty clear that the focus has to shift entirely to your recovery, your stability, and your safety. So let's walk through what the professional recommendations are. The recommended path is laid out in 3 very specific steps, and the order here is critical. Step 1, immediate separation. This isn't about punishment, it's about creating a non-negotiable space for you to heal. Step 2, mandatory individual therapy for the aggressor to actually address the root cause of this behavior. And then, and only then, as a possible step 3, could you even consider couples therapy, but that's conditional on genuine accountability. Your health, Alberto, is the #1 priority. Now, a quick but important word on the legal side of things. The unfortunate reality is that our legal system is, well, it's not great at handling this kind of targeted psychological harm, even when the damage is obvious and documented. If you wanted to pursue what's called an intentional infliction of emotional distress claim, an IIED claim, you have to clear 4 hurdles. And frankly, while you could probably prove intent, cause, and severe distress, it's that second one that's the killer. You have to prove the conduct was extreme and outrageous, so bad that it's considered utterly intolerable in a civilized society. That is an incredibly high bar to clear in court. And this all leaves us with one final big question. We live in a world now where someone can weaponize a digital space, target a known psychological vulnerability, and cause real, lasting harm. So how long can our legal systems afford to be playing catch-up? When the injury is so clear, why are the tools to address it still lagging so far behind?